For Pacifica Radio, I'm Teresa Wiersbianska. After Mexico and Canada reached separate negotiations with the Trump administration on its imposition of sweeping tariffs yesterday, China has countered President Donald Trump's tariffs on Chinese products with tariffs of its own on multiple U.S. imports, as well as announcing an antitrust investigation into Google and other trade measures. Jennifer King reports.
China is countering the U.S. with tariffs of their own, saying it will implement a 15% tariff on coal and natural gas products and a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery, and large engine cars imported from the U.S. starting February 10th. China also announced export controls on minerals like tungsten used in tech products, an antitrust investigation into Google, and a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization. U.S. tariffs against China take effect today. President Trump put a hold on tariffs against Mexico and Canada for 30 days after the two countries acted to appease his concerns about border security and drug trafficking. Even though tariffs on Canada were placed on hold, the Trump stand is not going over well.
Canadians are furious.
The AP's Rob Gillies reports from Toronto.
They're looking to see on the label where things are made. They're booing the American national anthem at sporting events in Canada. Canadians feel like the relationship with the United States is now broken.
I'm Jennifer King.
The Trump administration has shut the doors of the nation's humanitarian aid agency, the Agency for International Development, telling employees not to enter the headquarters and putting Secretary of State Marco Rubio in charge of the agency. Democratic lawmakers call the move illegal and an abuse of power. Christopher Martinez reports.
The United States is the biggest donor of humanitarian aid and development assistance in the world, but there seem to be some changes afoot. President Donald Trump and ally Elon Musk, head of Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, are moving to shut down the foreign aid agency, the Agency for International Development. Dozens of senior agency officials have been put on leave. The agency's official website and its account on the social media platform X have been taken offline. And Monday, employees were told not to enter the agency's Washington, D.C. headquarters. Democratic lawmakers were outraged. Ilhan Omar is a congressmember from Minnesota.
I am exceptionally upset about U.S. aid. I lived in a refugee camp for 4 years. As a child surviving civil war. It is the essential programs that U.S. aid provided that kept my family and I fed and safe. It is the resources that so many people around the world rely on. And it is our soft power.
She says Trump and Musk are trying to take away the power of Congress.
We are witnessing a constitutional crisis.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been put in charge as acting head of the agency, and Rubio says he's delegated that authority to Peter Marocco. Marocco had briefly served at USAID during Trump's first administration, where he generated protests over pushing program cuts. Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says El Salvador's president has offered to accept deportees from the U.S. of any nationality, including violent American criminals now imprisoned in the United States. Rubio says President Nayib Bukele, quote, has agreed to the most unprecedented, extraordinary migratory agreement anywhere in the world. Rubio adds he's also offered to do the same for dangerous criminals in custody and serving their sentence in the United States, even though they're U.S. citizens or legal residents. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are set to meet for talks in Washington. Tuesday's White House meeting comes as the Israeli prime minister faces competing pressure from his right-wing coalition to end a temporary truce and resume the war against Hamas militants in Gaza, and from war-weary Israelis who want to see remaining hostages come home and the 15-month war brought to an end. Julie Walker reports.
President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are set to meet this afternoon at the White House as the foreign leader faces competing pressure from his right-wing coalition to end a temporary truce against Hamas militants in Gaza and from Israelis tired of war who want the remaining hostages home and the 15-month conflict to end. Trump is guarded about the long-term prospects for the truce, even as he takes credit for pressuring Hamas and Israel into the hostage and ceasefire agreement, which went into effect the day before he returned to office last month.
I have no guarantees that the peace is going to hold.
The leaders' talks are expected to touch on a long-sought Israel-Saudi Arabia normalization deal and concerns about Iran's nuclear program. But hammering out the second phase of the hostage deal will be at the top of the agenda. I'm Julie Walker.
I'm Teresa Wears-Bianska for Pacifica Radio.